This is Letitia Stiles from Young Finances, and it's a great day to listen to the Personal Profitability Podcast.
You're listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast, where you'll learn how to earn income, live better, and put your money to work for you. Here's your guide on your path to personal profitability, Eric Rosenberg.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the Personal Profitability Podcast for episode number 15. Wow, 15. That seems like just yesterday I was recording 14. So today I have a very special guest. We've recently been talking a lot on the blog about freelancing and how to get started there. And in our last episode, I was talking about how I started freelancing myself and became a part-time freelancer. But I wanted to give you the whole story of what freelancing could offer. So I brought on a special guest today, Miranda Marquit. Now, Miranda I met through the Financial Blogger Conference, FinCon, and we've had great hangouts and conversations there. And she is on with us today to share her journey to how she became a full-time freelancer and talk about all the downsides, the upsides, and everything in between. So give everyone a howdy, Miranda.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on. And I would just like you to know that in Idaho, where I live now, you can get your driver's license at age 15. So this episode can be driving a car.
15. Wow. See, look how fast I've aged in just these months. Now I can drive a car.
That's right.
That's funny. I guess is it for all the farms and whatnot out there? People need to drive a little younger to help out.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I've had my driver's license since 15, but when I went to get insurance back when I lived in New York, they would not accept that I had my driver's license that long. It kept the software that the insurance agent was using just kept pushing it back out. It was crazy.
You had to just lie and say you were 16 and you got it?
I did.
In New York, it's 18, isn't it? I think.
I don't know what the driving age is there.
I think it's 18. Well, anyway.
All I know is that that New York could not wrap its head around the fact that I had my driver's license since I was 15.
Well, I'm impressed. I didn't get it till I was 16, so you got a year on me there.
There we go.
So anyway, why we're really here today, not to talk about driver's licenses, though it's an interesting topic. We were here to talk about freelancing. So for listeners out there, Miranda's really one of the top recognized experts in the financial blogging community on all things freelancing. She's written extensively about it, has a blog about it. I actually linked to it in an epic freelancing post that came out a couple weeks ago on Monday. And so I'm really thrilled to have you here, Miranda, to talk about it. So could you share how did you get started in freelancing? Where did you make your first freelancing dollar?
My first freelancing dollar was made. Oh gosh,
we're going way back,
we're going way back. We are going 10 years back,
which in blog years is like 90 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's like forever ago. So that's way back, and so I'm trying to remember. So my first freelancing dollar was probably made writing keyword articles back when that was a thing.
Okay, I remember those days.
Yeah, vaguely in the far past of Google, when you could write something that was 350 words long and stuff a bunch of keywords in it and put it on Google, and it would be put it on the internet and Google would find it. So that was probably my first freelancing dollar. Nothing really exciting, nothing really fancy, nothing highbrow. All writers, myself included, dream of writing something highbrow when they get, going, I'm going to write all these high-minded pieces and get paid for it. And it's going to be an intellectual life of the mind. And I'm going to get paid for it. And no, I ended up writing keyword articles. That was the first thing I did.
So when you started, did they find you, or did you look out and say, oh, I want to make a few dollars on the side, or, I'm looking for a new career? How did you get started? Where did that come to be?
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to be able to work from home. My son at the time was right around 3. And so I wanted to be able to work from home. So I got my master's degree in journalism, and I had finished my master's degree in journalism. And my husband at the time was just getting started on his PhD program. And so I just decided that I was going to do this from home, and that's what I was going to do. And there was no job to quit. There was nothing else to do. There was just my husband's student loans and me trying to make rent. And so what I did was I hit the job boards. There are freelancing job boards out there that you can look at and look for freelancing work. And that's what I did, is just look for freelance job boards and apply for all of these different jobs. And that's how I got my first job, was applying through a freelance job board.
So it wasn't like one of those big content mills like eHow or anything like that. It was a specific job you were brought on to do?
Yeah. So it was a specific job for catalog. Okay. Kind of retailer place. And they did window treatments, like blinds and curtains. Mm-hmm. And so I just wrote 350 word articles about, window treatments, about Brazilian blinds and Roman shades and those kinds of things. So yeah, they were looking for somebody to write regular articles so that they could populate their site, because it was at a time when Google was just, starting to be really a popular search engine, and a 350 word article could, help somebody find your high quality window treatments. So I applied for that job, and that's what I did. And in the meantime, I did other things. I did start writing it was Associated Content at the time. I was there right when Associated Content first started, and I wrote for them just because it was a way for me to basically set my own pay scale, right? As many as you wrote and turned in, that's as many as they paid you for. So once that started up, I started doing that. And then, of course, it became Yahoo Voices, and then now it doesn't exist. So the life cycle of the internet right there. So
do you remember what you got, if you don't mind sharing, what you were paid for those 350 word articles?
Oh, so sad. $5 a piece.
$5 a piece. So we all have humble beginnings. My first paid writing thing was actually, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was link building through my blog, which was brand new. I was like, sweet, someone will pay me $10 to write a blog post on my own blog about something that I would maybe write about anyway, and put a link into some UK insurance company. How cool is that? That was how my first online dollars for my finance blog started. Actually, it was sort of my first real online dollar I earned. Actually, I don't even know if I've talked about this on the podcast or the blog before. When I was in high school, I was a huge pro wrestling fan. It was still called WWF back then. So I made a fan site, and I wrote about all the wrestlers on my GeoCities site. And
nice. GeoCities.
Yeah. And I had to learn HTML and all that to make it work. And there was predating, Google didn't even exist yet. Yahoo had a banner ad network. You could put banner ads on your sites. And if people clicked on your banners, you'd get a nickel. And I think I made like $3 from that.
Very cool. Look at you.
I know, in high school, I made $3. Sweet.
Good job. Hey,
didn't even cover a Chipotle burrito. all that work. Anyway, so I'm guessing you make more than $5 per 350 words now. How did you progress your career from window treatments? What came next after that?
Well, as I said, I started writing for Associated Content when it started out, and I just started applying for a lot of different jobs. One of the first things that I started doing after the window treatment good times was this website called phys.org. So it's this physics website. And in a former life, I was a physics major. And so I had always wanted to do science writing. And I had a former classmate of mine at Syracuse, where I did my journalism graduate degree. He was working at Discover Magazine. And so he ended up throwing me a couple of front of the book type pieces to do on a freelance basis. So that was nice. So I had that to help out a little bit. But I did apply for this phys.org website because I did want to be a science writer. I thought that's what I would do, is write about science. And I got that job. They were concerned that I didn't have a degree in science, but when I showed them some of my writing samples and showed them that, I had the ability to interview people and condense what they said and make it relatable. That's when they decided to hire me, because then I had just enough science knowledge to understand and interview these scientists, but I wasn't so steeped in it that I couldn't translate it for like regular people, right?
Yeah, that's an important thing. If you want
right.
if you want normal people to read your stuff, you have to write for normal people.
That's right.
My sister is she's in medical school now. During her undergrad, she was doing research, and she was a listed co-author on a published article in a major science journal. And I understand at a very high level what they were doing, but I couldn't even quote the title because it was so complicated. I've like showed it to a real scientist, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's really cool." I was like, "I have no idea what that even means. That's not English words there."
Yeah, so that was great. And that was a great gig that I did for several years. So I had that gig, and then I had, just when RSS was starting to become a thing, and just before blogging started taking off as like a true marketing tool, rather than just writing articles to populate somebody's website, just as blogging was starting to take off as like a real tool in, like 2005, early 2006, I was approached by somebody who saw my work on associated content. So throughout all this time, I basically spent 2 hours a day just writing articles and submitting them on associated content to pay the rent.
Okay. So at that time, how did associated content's pay scale work? Were you paid per article? Did you get so you could submit for immediate review and payment, and then you would get also residual income from like page views. Okay.
So I always submitted for immediate payment, and they would pay anywhere between $5 and $50 per article, depending on who you were and the quality of your article. I actually, toward the end of my time writing there, when I sort of started tapering off, I was making on the high end of what you could make at associated content, just because of my output. And well, one of the articles on the site put the Grand Canyon in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So my quality
I've been to the Grand Canyon, and I'm from Colorado, and I could say they're not in the same place.
No. So it was really immediately obvious that even though, I may not be the best writer out there, I was pretty good for associated content.
You had something to offer.
I did. And so I did. I spent 2 hours. I would spend 2 hours each day consistently producing that content, because that was rent and grocery money.
So was that really enough, the 2 hours a day to cover the rent and more? Yeah,
for the speed that I write, yes, it was.
So that's a really inspirational tidbit for people out there. There's a lot of people who think, "Oh, I could never freelance," especially people with full-time jobs. Like me, I was thinking, how would I have time to do this? But 2 hours a day, even 1 hour, if you compare the rent with 2 hours a day, imagine you start with 1 hour a day. There's so many great opportunities, and I'd hate for people to be afraid from trying because they feel like they don't have the time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you can definitely, leverage up that. And like I said, I had somebody her name's Robin Tippins, and she's done stuff like with the Yahoo community, and she's done stuff with Current TV. And so she's done some of this stuff in the past, but at the time she was working for a different company, and they were looking to start marketing, start selling blogging services to companies as part of their marketing budget. And she was on associated content looking for people who were consistent and who could be reliable posters. And she just saw that I did it on my own without having, she just saw my output. Right.
You're prolific.
Yeah, I was. That's the thing that's, got me where I am today, is just like output. Straight output.
How long did it take you on average? Let's say you were writing a 500-word article. How fast could you crank out 500 words?
This is so embarrassing. If it's something that I know really well, and it's something that doesn't require an interview, and it's just like a general knowledge, general purpose, general article that's just cranked out, I can do it in 10 to 15 minutes.
That's pretty sweet. That's not embarrassing. You should be proud of that.
And then if it's something that requires more work and more effort and more research and something that I'm not really familiar with, or if I've interviewed somebody, it can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour.
Okay. So, well, if we think about the math on it, if you were spending, let's say you're writing 500 word articles and you could write one every 15 minutes, 2 hours a day, that you could see how the money would add up pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of why I say with a caveat, like just at the speed I was writing them, it kind of helps. And then I was being paid at the high end for that. But you can start to build up to a living. I mean, the going rate for an article of 500 words is not, $5 to $15 anymore. It's higher. So, somebody could potentially earn more.
If you were someone brand new with very little experience, but knew a lot about a specific topic, and they came and said, Miranda, can you connect me with someone who wants to hire me who does this? What should I charge? What would you think a new person, brand new, starting out, should charge for a short 500 word article today?
I would say $20 to $25 at the low end. And if you can get away with it, $50 to $75. And that's just starting out. I make more than that for most of my stuff right now.
Yeah, so that's great. So let's say $25. Let's say you're starting brand new, no experience. But if you could do one of those a day, 5 days a week, that's some spending money there.
It is. But I would say, if you're going to ask that, I would say you would need to have some sort of expertise in the subject to make up for the fact that you haven't been a writer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And as you build that portfolio up, you can obviously charge more, which both you and I have done.
Exactly. But yeah, it takes time. I've had people be like, well, can I just, how have you done this? How have you built up this reputation? How do you get these, high things? I want to do this in 6 months. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years. And I didn't start making six figures until maybe I'd been doing this for 5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years. So I think it takes time if you want to build up that reputation. I guess you could probably do it faster. And I'm kind of a slow mover. I build on solid foundation to solid foundation. I don't take a lot of risks. So I suppose if you took more risks and you got out there more and you promoted yourself more, you could probably speed that process up. But it did take me 5 or 6 years to get to the point where I was making six figures as a freelancer.
Well, that's also a great success story. A 6-figure freelancer. There's that's how the full-time thing works. I was saying on the last episode, the reasons that I didn't become a full-timer. And the big thing for me was, the stable job, which I know what I'll get every paycheck, and things like health insurance, which I have a little baby girl on the way. So that means a lot more now than it did when it was just me living in a cheap apartment in Denver by myself.
Oh, congratulations. I didn't know you were expecting.
Yeah.
Well,
we have a little.
You're not expecting, but.
Yes, my wife. I'm expecting my wife to do something, I guess. Yeah. So we have, with all that, with the mortgage, the family, all that, it makes me feel comfortable in my part-time freelancing world, making a great supplemental income, but doing it full time, seeing people like you, these great success stories making six figures, you can see how someone might make the jump from having a full-time job and freelancing on the side to going full-time into the freelancing world.
Right. And there's lots of ways you can do that. As far as I was concerned, what I started doing was I lined up quite a few gigs as a staff writer on other people's blogs. And when you work for the independent bloggers, you cannot charge as much because they can't afford to pay as much. Right. But the thing was, at one point I was writing for 20 to 30 different blogs. That's
pretty amazing. I used to see your name. I still see it all over, but I used to see it.
You used to see it a lot more.
Every single friend's website, I'd see your name pop up every once in a while. Like, what? Miranda's there too? Wow.
Yeah. There was a time where you could not escape me, and it was, I felt a little bad about the fact that you could not escape me.
Well, but how many hours were you working at your, say, peak hours that you were doing?
Yeah. So peak hours, I was probably working maybe 30 hours a week at the blogging.
So still less than 40 hours a week and making a full-time living there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I did was I had a core of, they weren't high paying jobs, but I had a core of low paying jobs that were steady. And that were like, they contracted with me and I just provided like one or two blog posts a week for them and then every month I'd invoice them. And so what I did was I had these low paying jobs, but they had kind of long-term security. And that was my core. Mm-hmm. And that was the rent and the groceries. And as I got those, I cycled off of writing for Associated Content. Does that make sense? So I sort of moved on. They paid more than Associated Content. So I sort of moved on.
You upgraded a little.
I upgraded. Yeah. And I had this core and I just wanted to make sure I had the core because I was the primary breadwinner for my family. Well, technically I still am now the primary breadwinner for my family. I've got a son to take care of. So and he's going to be a teenager and teenagers get expensive.
So they cost more than babies, I'm guessing, at least after the initial getting them out part. That's the expensive part.
Yeah.
Once you get them home, they're not all that expensive.
Well, they're the diapers.
That's true. Diapers are they're not cheap, but no. There's more expensive, worse things in the world. When I was a teenager, I wanted things like Xboxes, and it wasn't Xbox yet. Those didn't exist. When I was a teenager, I wanted
the sweet Sega system, right?
Well, I'm a little younger than that one. I did have a Sega. That was in high school. I wanted it was the PlayStation 2 was the big one I got in high school.
I see.
$300, compared to diapers, and with all the games, and then I needed the TV. It becomes quite an expensive collection. That was my taste.
If my son wants all that business, he can pay for it himself.
That's what I ended up having to do. My parents were like, we bought you your old Nintendos when you were a kid. Now you can go get a job, and I did. My first job is that was not freelancing related at all. I worked at a Boy Scout camp. It was my first job, and I was paid $5 a week my first summer. So that didn't even pay for my uniform that I had to have. My parents paid for that. They were happy to. But I also, when I turned 16 and got a car, my parents said, you can have this car, which was a total piece of crap. But I had to insure it and pay for the gas and the repairs. So I got a job at Target, the one by my house, and that paid for my car and those needs, plus a little left over to go buy a PlayStation 2 with my employee discount.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I got 20% off, which that adds up on $300.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. Still cheap, still less than diapers though, I guess, before we started coming back around. So anyway, so now you're the primary breadwinner. How many hours to make in that if you're still in that 6-figure range? How many hours a week would you say you work to maintain that now?
Yeah, so right now I probably work about 20 hours a week.
Maybe I should go full time on freelancing. Now you're making me think twice.
Well, I mean, part of it is I transitioned from I don't write for nearly as many blogs anymore, and now I've transitioned to writing for mostly corporate clients. I've actually come full circle because when I first started doing the blogging, when I first started moving from just doing articles for like the website or articles for the physics website, and I started doing the blogging. It was for corporate sites. It was like for corporate blogs. Mm-hmm. And then I got away from working for the corporate stuff and did a bunch of stuff for the independent bloggers. And now I've come full circle and I'm writing mostly for corporate clients again.
You're charging them more than the first time around.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So how did you make the leap from the $50, $75, $100 a post rate to what you charge the corporate clients today?
I basically went back to my training. So I have a communications degree. I did PR stuff. I just went back to what I learned about what to expect to pay professionals as you're, doing these things. Mm-hmm. And I went back to the old school print rates, like for magazines, and what I got paid when I did a few things for Discover magazine. And I went back to those rates and said, this is what I'm charging corporate clients when they asked. So
when they all said, sure, you're worth that.
And they said, of course. Yes. Fantastic. So yeah, so going back to so I've just kind of come full circle, and part of being able to land those corporate clients is once again, because it's all in the financial space. Mm-hmm. So goes back to building community, building connections and relationship in the community, and building your reputation. Most of the corporate clients that want to work with me because they know that because I've built up this reputation over these 10 years in my niche, right? Mm-hmm. So I focused on the personal finance niche after probably about 2007, 2008 is when I started really focusing. I mean, I've been in the personal finance niche since 2006, but I started really focusing my energy on the personal finance niche 2007, 2008. And finally in probably about 2009, 2010, it all starts to blur after a while, but probably 2009, 2010 or so, maybe as late as 2011 is when I kind of moved away from the people I was writing for in the science website and in the tech world, because I did write for some technology websites. And in fact, actually until last year when I moved away from Logan, Utah, I was writing for the local newspaper. I wrote a tech column for the local newspaper. So do you think because
if you had, instead of personal finance, if you'd pick, a science subject or a tech subject, that you could be in the same place today, revenue wise, just in that other area? Or do you think it's a special thing in the finance space? Or is that just because you put your effort and time there?
I think I could probably do reasonably well in the tech sector and science and technology. I don't think quite as well. I think there is something about the personal finance space and about companies in the personal finance space, especially the older companies, the
big old banks.
Yeah, the big old companies. Standbys, the banks, the investment companies, because they're transitioning into the digital age, and they're really interested in making that transition. And so they're an interesting place because they understand what you do is worth. Does that make sense? Because they understand from a corporate standpoint, what to expect to pay, and they understand what it's worth. And they also understand that they need the help in this area. So that's one of the reasons why I think the financial space is a special case. And I probably would not be making quite as much if I had ended up in another niche. I mean, I think I'd be doing well enough to make a living. Mm-hmm. And I could probably get up to that point where you're making a living, but I don't think that I would be making quite as much. And I don't think that I would have the situation I'm in without being in the financial world.
So if you were, and going back to the new guy, and we just said mm-hmm. what a first timer might expect to get paid per article if they were starting out, if you could give them advice on how to pick a topic area or something that they can try to become the recognized expert in, what advice would you give them?
I would say you definitely need to get to know other people in that niche as well. It's kind of interesting when you're a professional freelancer and a professional blogger, everybody is sort of the competition, but they're also not the competition. You're right. You're in it together. Like you are kind of the competition, but you're not.
Right.
We're in it together.
I feel like there's a true thing to that. I think there's two parts. Like if you look at, I'll use a stock market analogy because this is a personal finance focused website. Right. When one company does really well, their stock can go up and down quite a bit. But when the economy does really well, it's like a bunch of rubber duckies in a bathtub. When you raise the water level, they all float up. So if we can all move up together, and I'd say that in any freelance space, it's good for everybody. And sure, you want to be the one who catches the wave and rides to the top, but we all go up and down together as writers or any other freelance profession, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's a good comparison to make. So yeah, I really think that getting to know people in that area and getting to be a part of the community, because a lot of these niches now have communities. Travel writers have communities, tech writers have communities, parenting bloggers have communities. They all have communities. And if you can get in and get to know people in that community and become a part of that community and actively participate, then it's easier to build a reputation. It's easier to establish yourself, and it's easier to meet the corporations and the companies that are in that niche, right? You don't get just invited like the parenting bloggers that end up going to Disney World, right? Yeah. They get invited to Disney World. They're part of that because they're part of that community and they've gotten to know that. And for like a personal finance blogger, I always say, if you want to get to know the companies and you want to be able to meet the companies and you want to be able to meet other bloggers and you want to be able to meet those connections and start building your reputation, you got to go to FinCon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really been pivotal in both my blogging and my freelance writing.
Right.
Connecting with people face to face who are willing to, pay you for something that you offer. That is hugely valuable. Actually, one of my favorite clients, all of my clients are favorite clients. One of my favorite clients, there's an event called Ignite. They do them all around the world. They're 5-minute speaking events. And we do an Ignite FinCon that I'm the guy who runs. And at the end of, I did a talk, and one of the things I said, I'm a freelancer for hire. And at the end of my talk, somebody came up to me who worked for a big investing company, and they said, we'd like to hire you. And we talked the next day, and they became a client a week later. It was all signed and done, and it just couldn't have happened without that face-to-face meeting. But
exactly. And I think it's really an odd thing, because when I first started 10 years ago, the whole point of being online and being an online freelancer was that you never had to meet anyone ever.
Right.
And maybe you never even had to talk to anyone on the phone.
I still have clients that I've never spoken to on the phone that have been year-plus clients who are very good. But I find that the top payers are ones that you have more personal relationships with.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
So, just for people's knowledge, I've talked about FinCon quite a bit in this podcast, but there are other similar industry conferences. One, I actually kicked myself that I missed it when I lived in Denver, and it was 2 hours away in the mountains. There's a big one. I think it's called TBEX, something like that.
Yes, TBEX. That's a good one for travel.
Blogger conference, and I write a little bit about travel. And I have a friend who made all these huge connections. And there's different perks to different industries. In finance, people are probably a little more money driven. That might be part of why you can demand higher rates. But if you're a travel writer, you get free trips and things. I know people who've gotten sent to resorts and these awesome trips all around the world because they're travel bloggers and they've built up an audience, or they are freelancers who have that reputation that, if you give me this experience, I will get that experience out there. And you obviously have to have journalistic integrity and be honest. You can't just write good reviews because you got free stuff. But travel blogging has conferences. Every industry has its thing.
Right. And there's Type A Parent for the parenting bloggers. That's a really good one to go to. There are plenty of conferences. So your first move should be, what are the industry conferences? What's going on in my niche, and where should I be? And
there really is a conference I find for everything. Actually, my brother-in-law does heavy equipment work with big tractors and things like that. And he went to Las Vegas a couple years ago for the World of Concrete Expo. And I just happened to be in Las Vegas. It was around my birthday earlier this year. And I saw these big signs, World of Concrete Expo. I'm like, if I wanted to be a concrete blogger or a construction equipment blogger, this would be the place to be. Because there really is something, I think, for if there's something for concrete, there's something for everybody.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, for sure.
So don't feel so for listeners, just because we talk about personal finance so much here on this podcast, don't feel like you'd have to be restrained to that. And it actually helps me and Miranda out if you don't go that way, because all the boats go up together, all the rubber duckies, but more rubber duckies, I guess. So, but really, you've got to find what you're passionate about, what you care about to some level. Because if you're not interested in it, it is so hard to keep doing it over time.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, you want to do something that's interesting, or at least because I never thought I'd do money. Just somebody asked me to write about it one day. And I was like, I guess it's like math. So
it's all science, math, money. It's all
it's all the same. Yeah. And
IRA, Newton's third law, whatever.
That's right. It all. But no, but I found it, I do find it interesting. I love money. I think it's very interesting to write about. And especially when you start factoring in behavior and sociological factors, it's just very interesting to write about. But at the same time, what keeps me really focused in the money niche are the people. And so if you can find something that interests you, plus you get to meet interesting people at these conferences, then it's much easier to keep going and much easier to battle that burnout.
Do you ever have days or months that you feel like, how do I keep doing this? How do I go forward? Do you ever feel the blogger burnout?
A little bit. Yeah. There are days when I'm just like, I really don't feel like writing. I don't want to do this. What am I thinking? And why? There are some days, and sometimes during tax season when I'm writing yet another blog post about the difference between tax credits and tax deductions, I'm like, why?
Could you explain it right now? No, I'm kidding.
No, using different words.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing my fifth post about how to get your child involved in their own back to school shopping and saving money, when I'm doing that, there are times when I'm just like, why?
I get that. So what tricks do you use to get yourself through it?
Yeah. So mostly it just goes back to, if I'm having a really hard time, I'll just go take a break, go work out, go for a walk, go watch a movie, play a game with my son, go take a shower, just something else, just take a break and then come back to it. But then sometimes if you're on a deadline, you don't have that luxury and you have to do what Stephen King says, which is just get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the words on the page, turn off Facebook, put your phone away.
And just do it.
Yeah, I get that.
And sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to power through. We always think, oh, well, it's this charmed life. And a lot of the time, yeah, it is. I get to choose my hours. I get to choose my clients for the most part. Once you get to a certain level, you can turn down work if you don't want to do it.
I turned away. I've had a couple that I've said, thank you. I'm ready to move on. And it's, it's bittersweet because you're turning away money and someone who's put their trust in you, but there's bigger dollar signs down the road or that have already come up, and that's why you're making that move.
Or you just want the time back.
Yeah, which is, as a freelancer full time, that's a huge perk. Like if I, when I'm at my day job, full time, I work in an office. If I get stuck on a spreadsheet, I can't, go play a game with my kids and then come back in an hour and get back to work. That would be frowned upon in my industry. But as a freelancer, as long as you get your work done and you meet your deadlines, you can pretty much do what you want, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I just moved across the country and I didn't even have to meet my deadlines. I was just like, I'm moving across the country, so this is going to be late.
And there you go.
and really, I that's not something I would do like on a regular basis. But if you've built up that reputation and, normally I'm on time and normally I'm early. And so when you've done that, and if you can come to somebody and be like, for 3 years, I've done everything on time. This 1 week while I'm moving across the country, it's just, it's going to be late.
I need a couple more days.
Yeah. And a lot of them, are very understanding about that if you let them know ahead of time. And as long as it's not something that becomes a habit, you don't want to become like the flaky freelancer that they don't want to work with.
Do you ever take advantage of that location independence you can have and take extended trips anywhere? Or do you still live a more, normal stay at home, travel, take vacations kind of life?
Yeah. So since I have a son and he's in school, I'm kind of limited as to how nomadic I can be.
Right.
And because I refuse to homeschool, I think people who homeschool are awesome and that's great and that's sweet, but I don't think either my son nor I would live through that. So
yeah, I don't think there's homeschooling in our family's future. It would definitely not be for us.
So since there's a school issue, most of the time the trips go around school holidays. So like we go for a week on spring break and that's fine. And we take trips during the summer. We go camping. We do stuff like that. So it is really more of a normal stay at home kind of life. When he's done with school, I don't know. I might want to travel more and I may become more of a nomad.
But you never run up into that limit of number of vacation days you can take per year and get stuck in the summer and be like, oh, I wish we could take an extra week. Because you can.
Yeah, I can. I never run into that problem. can always, and if I'm like, I'm going to go to the spa today. Well, because my son's at school. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff while my son's in school during the day so that I'm home when he is. So I'm like, I'll go to the spa, or I'll go have my hair done, or I'll go meet somebody for lunch. I can do that. And if I want to shift some of my work to Saturday morning, that doesn't matter. I can do that.
Do you typically work Monday through Friday during the day, or do you regularly work on weekends and evenings and have kind of more sporadic hours?
Yeah. So I try during the school year, I try to just kind of work Monday through Friday and have a set kind of work time. During the summer, things get a little bit crazier. During school holidays, things get a little bit crazier, where I just sort of work when I can. And then Saturdays and Sundays come into play, where I just, it's kind of like, well, we're going to go do this on Wednesday. So I'm going to go. So that means I'm going to have to do work on Saturday.
That's great. So we're getting towards our time now. So yeah. I have one last kind of open-ended question. Okay. If somebody had never freelanced before and wanted to get started in anything, whether it's writing or otherwise, what tips and motivation could you offer for them?
Well, I would say start out by setting aside time to do the work. So set aside work time and set aside job finding time. And that's what I did in the beginning. So I had my 2 hours where I did associated content, and then I would spend 2 hours looking for work. So I'd spend time working at the websites, or I'd update my resume, or I'd work on my website or work on my portfolio. So, I'd have, here's my solid work time. And when I'm done doing the solid work, then I spend time looking for more work. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I say, if you want to do freelancing part-time, or if you want to transition to full-time, you definitely need to set aside a chunk of time where it's work development, getting work. So applying for jobs, fixing your portfolio, building your website, connecting with people in your field, that kind of thing. So you definitely need to take time to do that. And then other than that, it really boils down to making the time to work and making the time to keep looking for work.
Oh, that's great advice and hugely valuable. This whole thing has been fun. It's been interesting, and I'm sure lots of people will get lots of great use from it. So
I hope so.
Because you're such an awesome and inspirational person, I'm sure many listeners will want to come find you and connect with you. And you even have a book they might be able to read. Could you tell a little about that and where people can come find you?
Yeah. So the book is called Confessions of a Professional Blogger. It's just a basic handbook on getting started. It's not about how you're going to make 6 figures in the next 6 months. It's not super glamorous, and it's not about monetizing your blog. So
but it's
I'm going
focused.
to get that out
it's
there
on a
right
topic.
now. It's focused. It's focused on how to get started as a freelancer. So
I'll have a link to that on Amazon through in the show notes. So you can go to personalprofitability.com/episode15. You'll find that there, and links to the awesome places Miranda's about to tell you about where you can connect with her.
Right. So mirandamarquit.com. I write about all things freelancing there. So more freelancing tidbits there. I have a YouTube video channel now where I have short 2 to 3 minute videos about just like freelancing questions people send me. So it answers them. So it's a video series, and you can get to that through mirandamarquit.com. And then also my personal finance blog is plantingmoneyseeds.com.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Miranda Marquit, the amazing freelancer extraordinaire. I'm going to keep throwing on adjectives.
Or something.
Yeah, or something. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Thank you, everyone who's listened. I appreciate you making it here to the end. If you have a minute and you liked what Miranda and I had to say and the podcast in general, it would make a huge difference to me to get the word out if you could just leave a little rating in iTunes. Hopefully you click the 5-star button. If not, send me an email. Let me know what I could do better for you. And until next time, everyone, stay profitable.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Profitability Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on iTunes or share it with a friend.